Good morning from La Mata, here in Spain. Today we're going to talk about living in Spain is not for everyone, because quite simply, it isn't. And I just want to cover some of the topics and reasons why it's not for everybody. The first one is there's no safety net. It's not just for Spain. I mean, I've had the same experience in the Philippines. A lot of people don't have the financial capacity or ability to adapt to a new environment, because a lot of the time they've come from an environment that is nanny state. They have unemployment benefit and things like that, where somebody's going to take care of them. In Spain, that doesn't really happen until you've actually paid into the system. There's no free rides. There's nobody going to look after you unless you're looking after yourself. It's why some people have the complications relating to healthcare. They'll stay on their EHIC cards when they should have actually transferred to private healthcare or transferred their to the Spanish system. They should have gone on to the Spanish system already, or should have private healthcare. Simple as that. The EHIC cards are temporary. I believe they're only for 3 months. So sometimes things go wrong. This is why you hear people complain about how bad Spain is, etc., etc. When what they really mean is they didn't prepare properly. But a lot of the time, they're not aware of what to be prepared for, because environment where you don't have to worry about some of this stuff. The next one would be no English. The English language barrier is a major one. I mean, if you live in a Brit town, fair enough, you can get away with it. You can find ways to make a little bit of a living. But if you're seriously wanting to be part of Spain, it is worth investing in your Spanish language. You will find it's much easier to get work. You'll find that it's much easier to do things because you can communicate with people properly. You can engage on things and do things for other expats. A lot of expats that don't speak a word of Spanish, they actually pay other people to do it for them. So learning Spanish is a very important one, and another one where people fail. Because you'll find some people complain that not enough people speak English, when the reality is you're in Spain. Spain loves its self-employed. Now, I know in the UK, self-employment is one of those things that you either love or loathe. I know myself, I'm sort of loathing it a little bit at the moment for the UK side, because they keep hammering the self-employed and removing the expenses and other things that sort of make it beneficial to be self-employed. In Spain, self-employment is a much broader system, but finding a good accountant that can explain exactly what you can put through your expenses and stuff takes time. But it is an important one. If you're going to be working here, you'll find that you need to find a job. A lot of them will go, oh, we only take on autonomos, which is basically self-employed. You're paying your own social security. So you have to be aware that you're going to end up paying some accountant fees every month. You'll be paying social security that starts off at 60 euros, but eventually ends up at about, I think it's 230 euros. So it can be quite expensive if you're not making a lot of money. Music. Hello. Yeah. Hello. How are you? I'm in Alicante. We're a bit further down the coast, 45 minutes south in La Mata. Next one would be lots of paperwork. Bureaucracy is a big thing in Spain. I would say bureaucracy is a big thing anywhere in the world. The reason it's a problem in Spain is because if you've come over from the UK, you've already done it in the UK. You're already in the computer system. You're already in every system, from your driving license to your birth certificate. Coming to Spain, you're starting from scratch. They don't know who you are. They need to identify it. And some people really struggle with paperwork. In the same way, in the UK, you find some of the stuff just doesn't make sense. So fill in this form. And it's like, okay, where do I get the form from? Well, it's online. I don't know how to use the computer, but it's only available online. These sort of things are going on in the UK at the moment. In Spain, a lot of it's on paper. It's much easier to do. I do prefer that. It's easier to work with. Mañana attitude, which is basically tomorrow. You hear mañana, which means tomorrow. It used to be. I would say that certain areas can be an issue, but I see it as a big problem. Um, I do know that if you're trying to get stuff done, like the bureaucracy on the paperwork, sometimes there is no sense of urgency on it. Nobody cares. They're off the coffee break or whatever. They can slow the whole thing down, but it's because they deal with it on a daily basis. I would say it's slowly changing because it's having to adapt. In the same way, resources are being reduced. So there's less and less money being spread around because obviously the financial crisis still exists, but it's more a case of just persevere with it. Don't set yourself deadlines that you know you can't keep or you assume you're going to keep. You're much better to go through, like say if you're doing a residencia, it's go, I need my NIE, I need my padron, I need, just write the list in order, but don't put the times to it because you may go down to the Padron office to find they're closed for the day, or you get there and it's already full. You know, because some days you go there, you can walk straight in, get a ticket, get your Padron back out the door. Next time you go down, there's no more tickets because there's that many people. You can't really schedule it to do this today all the time. You've got to assume that I need a Padron, so I'll get the Padron. And then, okay, I've got the Padron, I'll get this bit done. Don't try and force things. It just doesn't work. Which it gets onto the major one, which is people refuse to adapt. They're used to living a certain way from where they've come from and don't want to change. You have to change, otherwise you're going to be unhappy. You got to, I mean, even the shops close at 2 o'clock and open at 5, that sort of thing. I know myself, I like shopping around between 2 and 5. In the UK, if I normally shop during the way home from work or whatever, which normally falls just short of 5 o'clock, or I shop it just after lunch because I find it's less busy. But in Spain, they're closed. So yeah, you need to adapt to it. Spain not being a safe country is an interesting one because I hear about this and I know where we live on the coast, one of the big problems you have is we have excessive amounts of empty properties. They're full in holiday season, but during the quiet seasons, they're empty. You know, I don't know what the percentages are. I mean, in this area, I'd say it's at least 60% empty out of season. But I would also say what happens is you get gangs coming in, emptying the apartments, emptying the houses. It's more houses within apartments because there always seems to be at least one person in a block of apartments. But I know in parts of Torrevieja, there's apartments, houses that have had all their furniture, all their TVs, everything stolen. Because even in Torrevieja, they've had police raids on the market where they've been selling all this stuff. So, but I would say that from my viewpoint, I would say the risk here is no greater than the UK. I would say the types of risk here are less as well. I don't really experience the drunkards. I don't really experience the drug crime or anything like that in La Mata. I would also say I see at least 4 police cars a day in La Mata. Presence is pretty strong. So I would say if somebody says, well, the crime's too bad in Spain, I would say it's probably they're rural or they've had a bad experience. But myself, I would say the UK has different types of problems and some of them are far worse. Now, one of the ones that does affect a lot of people is they arrive in holiday mode. They've decided they want to move to Spain. They've had 2 weeks in Benidorm or wherever, and they think that's their life. But it's not. They've got a viewpoint that's come from a book or their holiday, and they don't see there is a lot of stuff that goes on in Spain which is completely different. A lot, if you work in the bars and restaurants, etc., the wages aren't great, but the hours are long. The same with a lot of the stuff on the coast, because when it's holiday season, they're making the money. Come the winter, whatever, there's hardly any money coming through the places. So they want you busy in the summer, but when it comes to the winter, they may even lay you off. But this is why even temporary contracts exist, where people are on autonomo, where they're basically just contracted for a period of time, you know, self-employed. Those things can be frustrating because you rely on an income and you struggle to get somebody that will take you on full time because they only want you in holiday season. They only want X, Y, Z. But unless you adapt your skills and develop your skill set, that's what you're limiting yourself to. No joke. That's what you're limiting yourself to. I know people complain about doing construction work as laborers or whatever, but they haven't learned some skills that Spain wants. Being multilingual is one of the most important ones. And then you have other things like teaching English and other stuff where there's a demand for it. And there's a private demand that you can do from your own home, which means that you're not rushing around waiting tables, lifting bricks or whatever. You're at home, nice clean environment, and making as much, if not more, else. Now, the next one I would suppose is working hard. We just covered that a little bit. Some people complain that they work harder here than they did in the UK. That's because they're on the coast. If you're doing some of these jobs, of course you're going to work harder. But in the UK, you may not have been doing those jobs before. You may have been working behind a nice desk before and not really noticed the guy 2 doors down from your house, works in construction, is up at 6 a.m., out the door at 7 a.m. and back at 8 o'clock at night because he's working on construction sites. Coming to Spain, a lot of people have been moved out of their comfort zones because that nice office job isn't available. So that's why you get people complain about the amount of hours they have to work, etc. Because in reality, it's because they're doing a different job. And also, a lot of the jobs revolve around tourism. If you're in the bigger cities, if you're in Barcelona, Madrid, etc., you're going to get more a job in line of what you were doing in the UK. But at the same time, you're still going to need to speak Spanish. And these are why people may find Spain a hard place to live in. It's the same when you get on to the next point, which is the job opportunities aren't there. The job opportunities are there if you speak Spanish. The job opportunities are there if you've got the skills they need. The job opportunities are there if you move away from the coast. Because on the coast, it is full of Brits. It's full of Germans. It's full of Swiss. There's people from everywhere. And everybody's trying to keep living here in Spain. So you have to understand that the demand for jobs, like the bars, restaurants, there's a lot of people after them and not a lot of the jobs available, and there's certainly not a lot of them available all year round. You need to have different skills. You've got to have skills that people want, and what I recommend with that is actually looking at the job boards. There's a lot of advertising with international agencies that will have jobs on there and that you can even apply for in advance and get a feel for why you can't get the job, or what is it that they require that you can't do. So say, right, your Spanish ain't good enough. Okay, I'll work on that before I get to Spain, but certainly don't arrive on Spain and try and get an office without understanding Spanish. You better get one. It's near impossible. Next is customer service. Customer service in Spain, I find difficult, to be polite. Calling the telephone companies, calling the electric companies, all that sort of stuff. I'll give you an example. There's a problem with our internet connection. So we called Movistar. They have a line. They recognize the system as being on a British speaking household. So when you dial through, it goes through to people that speak Spanish. So then you get a problem. But then they push you onto the technical support, and then they say, "Can you have somebody that speaks Spanish come to the phone?" That's a milder version. The other versions you get is nobody contacting you, nobody getting back to you, nobody answering the phone. Trying to change suppliers can be difficult. Is something we can do for you, because I basically get Andreas to call everybody up and harass them to get you disconnect your electric or whatever you're doing. But it is a problem. The next one is corruption. Corruption ties in with the infrastructure issues. Our area in the coastline is basically down to the fact that there's been a lot of houses built that shouldn't have been built. They've been built on land that's not legally allowed to be constructed on, and they have obviously money disappearing right and center. Things is economically pretty drastically. The whole land grab thing has affected the housing market. It does make people a bit cautious on making purchases. It does make people worried about future issues. Because I know recently we were dealing with a house, and may possibly in an area where there's 1,400 houses currently marked for demolition because they've been built by a former mayor on land that's earmarked for the environment. You know, it's a natural area. So there is some issues that does affect how people make their purchases, but on day-to-day life, it's not really an issue on the surface. I mean, you see it all the time in the media. I mean, the Spanish TV, you will see it pretty much daily, you know, different people for different things. But for day-to-day life, for the average person, doesn't really affect your noses. Being ripped off. Yeah, the mechanic here in La Mata is a prime example of that. A repair that should have cost €340 cost me nearly 1,000, and he's telling me he's doing me a favor by, if I have a receipt, he won't have 10% tax on top. Yeah, that is a problem in Spain, but I would say shop around, ask around. It's the same anywhere in the world. You get good and bad of everything. In my case, I recommend Andy's garage over at Catral. He does a good job. He'll tell you exactly what you need before you spend your money, but also you can phase in your repairs. You know, so like say there's you got problems with the tires or whatever. Maybe you got your tires and your brakes, but it may say do the tires first. Your brakes are all right for another 3 months or whatever. Then bring it back and get your brakes done, so you can adapt to your budget. But this guy that I dealt with dismantles your car, keeps it there, and then every time you go back, there's something else wrong with it. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I can understand that. At the same time, get recommendations for other people in the area, because they'll tell you who's good and bad anyway. But a lot of this stuff is a learning curve, because if you're new to a country, new to an area, you're going to get stung with some people. It always happens. It's just part of life. Until you're actually part of the community and understand the community, it can be difficult. Point of this video is infrastructure. Infrastructure in Spain on things like motorways, I find very, very good. I do see a lot of problems with drainage issues, and I do see that some places are suffering with a road deterioration. Due to the financial crisis, it's still ongoing. Simply, there isn't enough money to go around, and it's not going to change anytime soon. The good thing about the coast, though, where we are, is we're in a tourist area. So we don't really suffer too much, because obviously, like with the beach got hammered with the storms recently. They've already replaced the sand because they know this is money. So we have a lot of money invested here, but I'm sure some of the other places that don't have good tourism, for example, would probably struggle to get the same sort of level of support from the government, because at the end of the day, if you're a little town somewhere, doesn't really make any money, then I'm sure the roads and the rest of the infrastructure don't get the same investment levels. And it's just down to finances. The UK suffered a bit with it as well. I mean, there's been some campaigns relating to potholes in the UK, so it's the same the world over. But I would say that the investment from the EU in the road system in Spain has made a huge difference to the country. It's very fast to get around a lot of the places. Also, the rail networks are very, very good. I mean, the only downside from where we are is we have to go up to Alicante, or I think it's down to Murcia, to get the train so we can go to Madrid or Barcelona. But beyond that, everything's good. And I also find the bus service really good. I think for La Mata to Torrevieja is €1.35. I've never seen a bus that cheap in the UK. The last bus I used was probably about 15, 20 years ago in the UK, and it was £3.80. I don't know why I still remember, but it's £3.80, and it was a shorter journey. And that's why I don't use the public transport in the UK. In all honesty, it's just too expensive. But those issues are why a lot of people will struggle to adapt in Spain. But when they go back, they'll often blame it on things going wrong, in the sense that it's somebody else's fault. But it all comes down to planning. It's preparing yourself for this move. It's preparing to make sure you have all the right setup. You know, what you're going to do for work. Do you have enough money for the first few months while you get organized? Have you got a place you're moving into? Have you got people already there that you know and can trust that will help you with that transition of moving to a new country? These things are the things you should be listing down. If you're serious about moving to Spain, do that first. You've listened to the 15 things that are brought up on this live chat. Sit and write yourself a list down of what you think could be a problem and how you're going to deal with it, and take it from there. That'll be your starting point. And if you work that out, you're halfway there. And thanks for the guys that joined on the live chat. Thank you.